Grab your big book, your pen, your highlighter, and notepad and get ready to hear and apply some of the solution from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous through the experience, strength, and hope of Nikki M. To have a question addressed in a future episode of Noodle It Out with Nikki, please send an email to noodlewithnikki@gmail.com, and Nikki is spelled with 2 Ks. To get a more interactive experience with Nikki as she noodles out life and recovery questions using the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, you can get a link to her weekly Noodle It Out with Nikki meeting held live on Zoom every Monday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The information to that meeting is in the show notes of this podcast. God morning, God afternoon, God evening, everybody. We're happy to have you here. My name's Justin B., and I'm a son of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a qualifying addict of multiple fellowships living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time, and I'm here with the intelligent agent, spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation, and my co-host, Nikki M. Nikki, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Talk a little bit about, introduce yourself. Tell us what's going on.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Nikki M., and I'm a grateful member of many fellowships, and I'm not to have opinion on outside matters, but I am a member of this fellowship, and I believe there's only one fellowship, which is the fellowship that carries the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. In the 12th tradition long form, number 3 says, our membership ought to include all who suffer from alcoholism. Hence, we may refuse none who wish to recover. So, I qualify for even AA. I don't have to pick up a drink or even be an alcoholic. I suffer the disease of alcoholism, Justin, and I am so grateful today for that. Before, I was embarrassed by that, cursed. Why me, God? Now, my favorite prayer. Thank you, God.
Love it. Thank you, Nikki. Now, I'm the steward, and I'm blessed to be the steward of the RICO 12 family of recovery resources. Among those are RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting podcast, our RICO 12 shares podcast, this Noodle It Out with Nikki. We've got the Big Book Roundtable podcast that Nikki and I do with David G, and it's amazing. Now at RICO 12, we subscribe to the idea in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that, quote, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And we also have a goal of reducing or eliminating the stigma of shame. Nikki kind of talked about that. I used to be embarrassed or ashamed by this. No, but we want to reduce and eliminate that stigma of shame that accompanies addictions of all kinds. We hope to educate many so that they understand that addiction is a disease that can be treated and from which a person can live a happy, joyous, free, and very productive life if they follow a few simple but not easy directions. And we're happy to do that. And we are a self-supporting service. Please consider donating if you are able and willing. You can do that at rico12.com/support. There's also links in the show notes of the podcast. All right, this is Noodle It Out with Nikki, and it is an exercise and deep dive into finding solutions to questions, issues, and things we encounter in everyday life in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So today's question I'm going to jump into here, Nikki, is one that I've heard a few times, and I've experienced it a few times. I've probably asked this question of people a few times. It's, my sponsee will not do the amends I've asked him to do. He is reluctant, and I want to get him to step 10. How do I move forward with him?
I love this question. You move forward with them. That's how you move forward with them. Here it is. You move forward. And I'm going to tell everyone why. Nikki, he hasn't made an amends. Okay, everyone, let's get our Big Book 4th edition. And I just want to say we are fully self-supporting here. And I just appreciate anybody who is a spearhead at RICO 12 who makes donations here. I spent a lot of money on therapy, men, you name it, makeup counters, and I can throw some money in the pot, the virtual pot. So I'm just so grateful, Justin. Thank you. Here it is. That's how they can start making an amends. Put some money in the basket at your local meeting. Page 84 says, we vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So sponsor, I'm talking directly to the sponsor. It says your sponsee must vigorously, Google the word vigorously, also known as no half measures, 100%, commence, start to live this way of living. What way of living? This spiritual life, this 12 steps, this 1 through 9 every day, and then live the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12 as. Here's the key word, everybody, on page 84 of your big book, as. It doesn't say when we cleaned up the past. It doesn't say once. It doesn't say as soon as my sponsor told me to, because it says we. See, sponsor, your new sponsee has just entered the world of the spirit. Because we're supposed to work our steps fast, is my experience, is the history of AA. It says next, we launched fast, quickly. So your sponsee has just entered this world, okay? And it says his next function. Oh, does it say go run out and make an amends? Or does it say your sponsee's next function is to grow? She, your fellow, needs to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Why? This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for his lifetime. Why does he need to grow in understanding and effectiveness? He just entered the spirit world. All of a sudden, because sponsor says, go run out and make an amends, 20 years of hate and damage is going to be done. Think about that one, everybody. Because, oh, you better go out and write that letter. But I know a lot of people now in 2023 or previous in the 20s. Oh, you better go write in a letter, sit down at the coffee shop and read the letter. Everybody roll into page 83. It says, we send an honest letter if they cannot be seen. We don't sit down and just, oh, you better go do this. Where does it say that in the book? That's your experience. Well, my sponsor told me to do that. Your sponsor is not in the book. Sorry. And I get really crazy about this stuff because I had a sponsor. I almost died when they said, I'm not taking you to step 10 until you make your amends. I wasn't willing, ready. I hadn't lived in the spirit world long enough. But my new sponsor, who's totally in the big book, took me all the way through the 12 steps, told me to go create my own 100. Then as I'm sponsoring, I have the willingness, the open-mindedness. I'm teaching it so I understand why I need to do it. I can't go ask my sponsor to do it unless I make an amends. And here's a key word too, page 83, our behavior. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. So you're asking your sponsee, let me get this straight, sponsor. You've asked your sponsee, who's brand new in these rooms, to go out and make these major amends, and you're not going to take them into the disciplines of living in the spirit world so they're able to do it? Make it make sense. Because it says as, not once. Words matter. And I do want some pushback here because here's another part, and people forget this. I don't know if it's on page 78 or 79, but it says, it's right in there. It says, although these reparations, which are amends, take innumerable forms. Innumerable forms, Justin. That's too many ways to count. People forget that. Everyone's busy. Just go out. You're on step 9. Go and write the amends. Go and pay $5 back to that person when you owe them $5,000. No, why don't you live here for a while, get $1,000 together, get a job, get organized, and go and make a proper amends that means something. Because as God's people, we stand tall. We don't crawl before anyone. Our behavior will convince them more than and put in every explicit that you know word. Every explicit that you know word. Because it's like, oh, I'm sorry. And I parent this way too. My son, Justin, my experience, strength, and hope. Mom, I'm sorry I'm late. He's he's 19 now. And he kept saying, I said, no, you're not. You keep showing up late. So your behavior is convincing me more than your lame, can I use that word, lame words? Does that make sense? So I'm more mad in this situation. I get all twisted. My twisted thinking gets hold of me because that sponsee could very well run out of the rooms because they're afraid to make the amends. They're not living in here. Let's just go to let's just review it one more time. See, they're not functioning in understanding. They're not growing in understanding and effectiveness. They don't even know how to make an amends because they're not growing in that area. They haven't sought God, step 11, through prayer and meditation, and they certainly haven't started practicing these principles in all our affairs. Step 12.
Yeah, I think that's where I want to kind of push there because well, you mentioned, they aren't even yet practicing the disciplines of living a spiritual life, having just entered into the world of the spirit. Have you, the sponsor, even trained them on that? So let's talk about what are those disciplines that these newcomers need to be trained on and worked through in order to be able to make a meaningful amends.
God, I love these questions. Here we go. Now, why are Nikki and Justin B talking about discipline? Page 88. We addicts are undisciplined, so we let God. Nikki, I hate God. Don't use that word. You're going to scare the newcomer. Okay. We let the spiritual principles. We let humility, patience, forgiveness, love, understanding, compassion, discipline us in the way we just outlined. Now that's on page 88. So they've outlined in the previous 88 pages how to do that. But let's look at some certain pages here. Well, page 86, let's just start there. You said, how do I don't remember the exact phrasing of the question, but how do they get into the discipline of doing this? Well, new sponsee, you just enter the spirit world. Now we're on step 11. And you can start your sponsee on these disciplines right away. I know people, and it's true, the steps must be worked in order every day, all day. I admit I'm powerless at that. But all day, every day, you can be working step 11 from day one. You can be, here it is. Where does it start? Page 86. Let me get there. You can start right here on awakening. That's the minute you open your eyes, new sponsee. You need to think. That means meditate about the 24 hours ahead. There's your slogan, everyone, just for today. You need to consider your plans. Put your name there, new sponsee. Mine says NM, Nikki M. My plans for the day, the 24 hours ahead. Before I put my feet on the floor, go do my morning business, coffee included, I need to ask God. I need to ask these spiritual principles. I need to just say humility, direct my thinking. Being responsible, direct my thinking. Forgiveness, direct my thinking. Okay? And then I need to ask that I be divorced. Oh, the book is saying I'm married to something, Justin? I didn't know I had a husband. Nikki, you're married to self-pity. Nikki, you're married to dishonesty and self-seeking motives. You understand, this goes deep. So what I do when under these conditions, what conditions, says the sponsee? The sponsor says under these conditions, the moment you open your eyes, you, number one, thank you, God. And you ask God to direct your thinking. You ask to be divorced from your self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. In our last podcast, we talked about our purpose is to serve God's people. See, God gave us brains to use, Justin. Remind your sponsee that. These are the disciplines. How about another discipline? Make your bed. I always start there. Soldier. And if anybody wants the video that I send out about making a bed, message me or message Justin at, I don't know, where to read, Noodle Nikki at Rico something. So anyway, find that out and noodle us, because you need to make your bed to be disciplined. Because remember, we are trained monkeys. We just know how to eat, fornicate, defecate. We don't know how to do much, because an untrained addict in the grip of the disease of alcoholism, let's go deep, is driven, page 62, by 100 forms of fear, 100 forms of self-delusion, 100 forms of self-pity, and 100 forms of self-seeking. So that's 400 forms of madness. I need exact instructions upon awakening, then in my midday focus, and then when I retire at night. It's all in the book, how you get disciplined. And then once my sponsee starts to do that, and it doesn't mean that you let them off the hook with their amends. When you check, did you do your amends? Number one, do you have a sponsee? Did you do an amends? Remember that amends we spoke about? And a lot of these amends, everybody, are not letters. They are changed behaviors. And then keywords too. Except when to do so would injure them or others. Why are you going and talking to that person? Well, that's what my sponsor said. I have to seek out and go to the ends of the earth to find that guy that I did that to. I think he said he never wanted to see you again. But you forget that because you're listening to what your sponsor said. You understand? So why don't you go out and get a male sponsee, Nikki, and show him how to get to God. There's your amends to the man that you were the praying mantis to. It's a pay it forward program. Some people I cannot, and I love this one too. Remind your sponsees of this one, because this is where our souls get eaten, Justin. It says there are some wrongs, and I need to get the page number, but there are some wrongs we can never fully right. It clearly says don't worry about them. It's on page 83. There may be some wrongs, Nikki. You mean like throwing my kids away in the disease of addiction? I can never fully right. The book says, don't worry. And I say, why? Because I can honestly say to myself that I would write them if I could. Justin, I would give my left arm to go into the back of time and right all the wrongs. God knows my heart. God knows every hair on my head, because I was able to, in this program, choose the most loving, powerful God. Page 62, he is the father. I am the child.
Yeah, Nikki, such good stuff. And I don't know where to push back. I'm just going to share my experience, strength, and hope on this. I sponsored and was sponsored in the way of, hey, let's finish up almost all of these amends before we move on. That's how I did it for years, because that's how I thought it was the right way. And, for some situations, it may not be the wrong way, but I love this concept in the big book sponsorship of, and in the big book about my words really mean nothing. They're empty. It's the actions that mean something. And that takes these, what I interpreted as direct amends or indirect amends, which may have been a letter, may have been, hey, I'm going to go knock on your door and talk to you face to face, which may be the right thing, but it makes it so it becomes a living amends where I'm changing my behavior and not just saying the words. I'm actually, hey, instead of going and knocking on the door, I'm going and mowing the lawn of that person. I'm putting it into action. I'm doing something that is helpful to them and isn't just going to be me saying, hey, remember 30 years ago when I did this? I'm sorry. And walking off, because who does that really help? I mean, yeah, I'm unloading a little bit there and I'm saying I'm sorry, but I need to do something and be of service to others. Any other thoughts on that process of actually putting things into action rather than just words?
Well, I want to share my experience, strength, and hope, Justin. Thank you so much for sharing yours. There's a whole chapter called Into Action. It does not say into words. And words matter, but it says our behavior will convince them more. Our deportment shouts at the new prospect, at the new man, at our family. We are a person with a real answer. I think that's on page 18. My sponsor, Cameron F., who does our workbook on the big book sponsorship. At the time, he was my sponsor. I have a new one now, but he said to me, he never told me to go run out and make an amends to baby daddy number 2. He just said, go create your own 100. Now, if I would have ran out then to make the amends, it would have been number 1, insincere. Remember, we take a sincere position. It would have been insincere, robotic, like I've been doing for years, program, because society tells me to be that way. What I did instead is I worked the program 5 years later when my son turned 17 and baby daddy number 2, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I bought them a car. Now, it wasn't I'm not buying a Lamborghini up in here, you guys. It was a used old person's car that my neighbor had. It was like a gift horse from God. All you had to do was get the insurance. That's a better amends than I took you hostage. I never loved you. And you ruined my son's life. But I was wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry that I'm sorry I did this stuff to you. Like, no. How about when I had him over the other day at a family party and he brought his new baby and I'm like, my son's brother. And it's like, grandma, get your wallet. Let's give, like, he's 4 years old. Get Benny cake. Give him $20. Benny, it's like loving on his new son is an amends. Does that make sense? Like, and then the biggest one, like for my children, because I talked about that. What can I do? Justin, I had a miracle happen during COVID when I lost my job. Somehow my house got paid off. I have no mortgage. I'm not just sitting here going, oh, well, I'm going to a lawyer, getting a will written out, putting everything in my son and daughter's name. They're adults. What happens if something happens to Nikki? That's an amends. Action. Taking action. I saw a family not speaking over a banana tree. You have a will done, being responsible. I have children. How about the amends to my mom? When grandpa, her husband of 25 years, killed himself, Mom, come to Toronto, take my master bedroom. It has an ensuite bathroom because I'm only, at the time it was 40 something. I can get up and walk to the bathroom. You can have the ensuite. I gave her my master bedroom. That's the amends. You see, oh, Mom, I'm sorry I wasn't there. No. I have seen this in action because my sponsor at the time said, it says 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. Everyone, name your biggest skeptic. Do you think sitting in front of them and writing a letter going, I'm sorry, is going to convince them more? Seriously, like 10 or 20 years of addiction, of alcoholism, of selfishness and self-centeredness. That is the root of our trouble. Makes a skeptic out of anyone. And words matter, but our behavior will convince them more.
Yeah, I don't know what to add to that, Nikki, other than everybody, check this out. Get into that spiritual way of life. Enter the world of the spirit and start practicing these principles. Start practicing these disciplines. It works. It works when I work it. So work it. You are worth it.